Welcome everybody to our meeting today. At this time, Dr. Stewart, will you please come forward?
President of County Park, sir.
And lead us in the national anthem.
It's a beautiful day. Let's sing about it.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose sparks and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched, were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red flare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof to the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we have our invocation today, I want to ask Danny Sharp to come forward. He has an announcement he'd like to make.
Thanks, Mr. President. I know that most of y'all know about Pam Miles. She's spoken to our club 3 or 4 times over the years, and last time she spoke, she was her normal energetic self and did a great job, and several of our members talked about it and kind of gave a testimony of this Changing My Mind program that she has now. And she talked about her mom going through dementia and that prompting her new venture. And she didn't tell us that just a few days before she talked to us, she had been diagnosed with lung cancer. And it has now spread throughout her body, and she's given permission publicly and in our church and asking for prayer. So Pam is kind of a friend of our club, and I just wanted you to know that and maybe include that in the days.
Thank you, Danny. We will certainly keep Ms. Pam in our prayers.
All right. Bow with me, please. Dear Lord, I just thank you for another beautiful day, and thank you for the work Rotarians do all over the world and the good works that are accomplished by each club. Be with the leaders of our great nation that they might apply common sense to issues that face us in these difficult times. Be with those in Southern California and that region that are facing things that are unprecedented in our time. Be with Pam and her family as they go through this period in their lives, and give them strength and let them know that there's one stronger that they can turn to help them through this time of their lives. Be with us as we go our separate ways. Bless the food to the nourishment of our bodies and our bodies to ourselves. Amen.
All right, Terry Duffy, Family of Rotary.
Thank you very much, President Josh. Hope everybody's having a great Monday. Is it hot enough for you? Maybe if it's not, I think it's getting hotter later in the week. I got to share, I was over in Jackson, Mississippi this past weekend working at the Mississippi Book Festival, and I thought it was hot when I left here on Thursday, and I started driving over, and I got past Meridian, and I began to think something was going wrong with my BMW. With the air conditioning, it was getting so hot inside my car. And I looked down, and the temperature thing said 102. And I could feel the glass, it was getting hot. I get over there, and it's 103. And anyway, they're under some kind of crazy heat dome over there. And I drove back yesterday, and they were saying they're going to have 104 yesterday. And I think Wednesday and Thursday, they're going to be like at 107, 108. So it was cool when I got back to Dothan. Yeah. So if it's hot, it's not really that hot. Anyway, happy birthday to Catherine Bailey at, August the 24th, Jason Jackson on August the 27th. Anniversary celebration for Lawrence Johnson Kendall on the 22nd. Chris Lassiter and Julie, August 23rd, along with Robert Booch and Tracy on the 23rd. Rosemary McKibben and Jack on August the 24th. Hope you all have a fantastic week. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. All right, Sean Gibson is going to come forward and introduce our guest visiting Rotarians.
Good afternoon, all. Is it all? We're happy to welcome our guests and visiting Rotarians today. When I call your name, would you please stand and remain standing until all visitors are recognized? First, Carrie Brown, guest of John Brown. Powell Grisham, guest of Adam Roberson. Are there any other visitors today that I didn't call on? All right, thank you for visiting with the Dothan Rotary.
As Sean returns to his seat, there's an announcement that pertains to Sean today. Thank you, Sean, for having the Heart Safe folks come a couple weeks ago. That was a lot of fun. Great presentation. Just a reminder, each of us that participated in that got a T-shirt. So if you haven't gotten your T-shirt yet, I believe they're in a basket out here. So grab that on your way out. So thank you again for coming a couple weeks ago. All right, Chris Dixon has the drawing. It's a good year. The year I was born, 1986. All right, last four are 6581. 6581.
You sure?
Yes, sir. Jack of Hearts. Thank you, Art. Round of Art. All right, really don't have many announcements today. Just short and sweet. I will ask Adam Dozier and Kaylee York to please come forward. Yes.
Good afternoon. I'd like to introduce Kaylee York. She is the broker at Remax Traditions.
I'm sorry, is the mic on?
Okay, that better? Kaylee is a broker at Remax Traditions here in Dothan. She's a Wiregrass native. She grew up in Paco and she attended GW Long High School. After that, she graduated from the University of Alabama, and upon her graduation, she moved back and met Ryan, who's a physical therapist at Dothan Therapy Associates. That's about it.
Kaylee, you have been chosen to membership in the Dothan Rotary Club because your fellow members believe you to be a leader in your vocation and because you possess the qualities that impart the message of Rotary to those with whom we come in contact. You have been admitted not only to the Dothan Rotary Club, but a worldwide association, and by virtue of your membership in this club, you will be welcomed into the fellowship of any Rotary Club in the world. The honor and privilege of Rotary membership carries with it duties and obligations. You will be expected to attend club meetings regularly, to perform your share of club service, and to place your knowledge and talents at the disposal of the club in its task of carrying the principles of Rotary into the daily life of the community. Kaylee, it is my distinct pleasure to formally admit you to membership in this club and ask that your sponsor give you your lapel as your emblem. Fellow Rotarians, please rise and welcome our newest member. Welcome, Kaylee. All right, at this time, I'm going to turn it over to our good friend Walter Hill to introduce our speaker today.
Thank you, Josh. It's a pleasure to introduce my good friend Jeff Cook today. I looked it up because I wasn't sure how long I've known Jeff, but we got to be friends after Tracy, his wife, and my coworker Angie Sherrill were in Leadership Dothan together, and it was 2017. And that fall, they want to get involved and did a fundraiser for Wiregrass United Way through the Chick-fil-A store there at Sam's Club, and they've supported us every year since then. And as of this morning, when I got Angie to run a report, they have raised through different promotions for Wiregrass United Way at their Chick-fil-A over $35,000 since the fall of 2017. So I need to make sure I get them back because Wiregrass United Way is one of the things that Jeff and Tracy and Chick-fil-A Lost Park Circle support here in the community. Earlier this year, I heard him give a presentation at the Tuesday Rotary Club, and I immediately went up to him and said, Jeff, that was awesome, and I want you to come to my staff retreat. It's in April. The date's already set. The place is. I'll work the whole agenda around you. And he came to spend 2 hours with our staff. He's giving an abbreviated version of that today, so don't worry. About his military career, which is very, very exciting. His path from day one with Chick-fil-A up until today in the great construction on Ross Clark Circle, as well as some leadership skills and traits that he's developed and picked up over the years. So please welcome my good friend, Jeff Cook.
A lot better up there than it is down here. Wow. Let's see here. There you go. Is this good? Can you guys hear me okay? All right. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. We'll see if this works because he said push the one on the right and there's an R and there's an arrow. So I'm going to push the arrow because I think that's right. Yes. All right. So I like to share some leadership principles with you, some lessons I've learned, tell you a little bit about me, my story. As we go through that, I like to teach lessons or talk about lessons through story. So hopefully that works well. So I want to start with this, and that's what you see on your slide. Wedge, shooters, guns. And what that was a radio call that I made to my wingmen as we crossed in from Turkey into northern Iraq in April of 1991. I was on an armed reconnaissance mission in my A-10 Warthog. A ceasefire had been signed. For those that remember Desert Storm, the ceasefire had been signed, but there was still a lot of tension. It was still just a very volatile situation. So we were on a mission to, what had happened was Saddam's Republican Guard Army had worked its way up north and was attacking the Kurdish people in northern Iraq, pushing them up into the mountains, mountains that are bigger than the Colorado Rockies. And in doing that, created a humanitarian crisis. And so we were to go in and identify any Iraqi troop movements that there might be. We had real clear rules of engagement. If we were engaged or we saw hostile threat to the Kurdish people, even though there was a ceasefire, we could return fire. So Wedge was the formation that I put my wingman in. It was the formation that gave us the best mutual support in this specific scenario. Shooters, that was our role. I think nothing is more important than having role clarity, and we had a way of doing that in the fighter community. So we knew what our roles were going to be. And guns, that was going to be our weapon of choice. If we had to dispense lethal force, we were going to use our gun. So as I crossed over the border, I flipped on my master arm switch, and I got a green gun ready light. That's what it looks like in the cockpit. So I don't know how much you know about the A-10, but it was built around a 30 millimeter Gatling gun, a big cannon. It shoots bullets that are this big. If you want to see it, I'll let you guys even pass it around. This is the slug. It's actually a training round. A blue tip means it's a training round. So this part is the part that actually is a projectile. And you can feel how heavy it is. The combat round is actually about a half a pound heavier. It's depleted uranium. If you like to shoot deer and go deer hunting, that's probably overkill. Just saying. So here's just a picture of what the A10 looks like, and that's a picture of the Gatling gun as compared to a Volkswagen Bug, just to give you a sense. Like, if you're ever looking at the A10, like, straight on, you'll notice that the nose wheel tire is actually offset to one side so that the gun is down the true center line of the aircraft. So if you ever at an air show or you see one, you're like, hey, guess what? You know why that tire's offset? And you can have some cool little A10 trivia. So if I wanted, as we got into Iraq, all I had to do was squeeze the trigger, and I could dispense over 4,000 rounds a minute of those bullets at whatever target I chose. Okay, back to that story in just a little bit. But for now, as Walter said, I'm the Chick-fil-A guy, and what better to do than do Chick-fil-A trivia to kind of kick off the event, right? So I'm going to ask you guys some questions, and I've got some free meal cards here. Who doesn't like free Chick-fil-A? I mean, Chick-fil-A is great, but free Chick-fil-A, like, it doesn't get any better than that. So I've got a few little questions on the board, so everyone doesn't like mosh pit me and stampede me. Raise your hand if you think you know the answer. If you get it right, I'll give you a card. Okay, ready for the first question? It's like, yeah. Okay, what's our most craveable menu item?
Chicken.
What did I say? Raise your hand. Right there.
Chicken.
No. That's really general because we have a lot of different types of chicken.
Waffle fries.
Waffle fries, yes. You guys know why it's waffle fries? There you go. Yes, every meal has waffle fries. Whether you get a sandwich, whether you get nuggets, grilled chicken, you might get a fruit cup of grilled chicken, but waffle fries, the most craveable product we have on our menu. All right, next question. Who knows the founder of Chick-fil-A's name? Yes, sir.
Truett.
Yes. Man, I have to set it slow. You'll share a story at Ron. Yeah, mine too. Yeah, Truett Cathy. Founded Chick-fil-A in I won't tell you that, because wait, that's the next question. Hang on. But, Truett Cathy. Next question. When did the first Chick-fil-A open? You know it's in the 1900s.
Opened in Greenbrier Mall in Atlanta, Georgia.
What year?
I know it was the 60s something.
It was, yes ma'am.
1967.
Yes, and I'm going to give you one because you knew everything else. That's impressive. Sometimes when I ask these questions, people are on their phone, like, Googling the answers. You guys aren't doing that. That's great. 1967, Greenbrier Shopping Mall. Truett Cathy, people thought he was crazy for putting a Chick-fil-A in a mall. Like, who goes to a mall to eat? Right? He was like the pioneer of the food court. Pretty cool.
We stopped there to see the Braves play.
Yeah.
That was a stopping place for us.
Yeah. 1986, the first freestanding Chick-fil-A opened in the Atlanta, Georgia area. 2000, Chick-fil-A crossed $1 billion in sales for the first time. In 2012, they passed Kentucky Fried Chicken as the #1 fast food chicken brand in the United States. In 2018, $18 billion. 2020, during COVID, they passed 20 billion. Well, excuse me, they surpassed. They became #3 behind McDonald's and Starbucks in the fast food arena. And then last year they passed 20 billion. They're projected to hit 50 billion by the end of this decade. Just crazy. They're doing a lot of expansion, a lot of growth right now. And when you think about that, who can tell me what year did the Chick-fil-A on Ross Clark Circle open? Oh, and then there was silence. Anybody want to take a guess? You gotta raise your hand.
2006. What did I say?
No, but that's not too far away. Get you guys going. Yes, ma'am.
2001.
Oh, it's even closer, but no. What's that? Oh, wrong way. No. Okay. he heard me say? No, 1999.
Yeah, it's a tough crowd.
Yeah. Yeah, so we opened, that store opened in 1999 here in Dothan, on Ross Clark Circle. And you guys that have been around have seen all the renovations that have happened over the years to kind of keep up with demand. So just a little bit about that and about Chick-fil-A. I'd like to just kind of shift gears and tell you a little bit about, well, one other thing about Chick-fil-A. Pretty cool map. I'm going to show you a map. This is 3 years old, and it shows the most popular fast food restaurant by state. Okay? Pretty amazing how many states have Chick-fil-A, right? When this survey came out, there wasn't a Chick-fil-A in Hawaii. There are now. So there's only 2 places there's not Chick-fil-A. It's Vermont and Alaska in the United States. Chick-fil-A is also in Canada. They've got several locations in Puerto Rico as well. So it's a fan favorite across the United States. Let me tell you a little bit about, just transition a little bit about my story of how I got to where I'm at today, just with Chick-fil-A. So I'm a graduate from Troy State University back when it was a state university. You guys remember that? Go Trojans. What's that?
I've been there, done that.
Yeah. Yeah, so I enrolled, my wife and I, Tracy, actually met there. She played in the Sound of the South band, and I was enrolled in the Air Force ROTC program. In 1987, I graduated from Air Force ROTC, and you can see a picture of me getting commissioned in the United States Air Force. I went off to pilot training in Wichita Falls, Texas, at a base called Shepherd Air Force Base. And here's a photo of me getting into the T-38. So the T-38 was a supersonic trainer that I flew. So this plane was nicknamed the White Rocket. It would go from brake release on the runway to 8 miles in the air in 2 minutes. It was fast. It was fun. It was like a sports car. And as lieutenant, it was a lot of fun. I think the fastest I ever went in it was 820 miles an hour.
You had an oversized engine, that's why.
Yeah.
You had a jet plane.
Yep. So after I finished pilot training, and I got a chance to go back and teach in the T-38 as well, but I went to, I got assigned to fly the A-10. I flew it in 3 different places. I flew it in the United Kingdom. That's when I deployed over for support of Desert Storm and provide comfort, those operations. Flew it in Korea, and then taught people how to fly it in Tucson, Arizona, where the schoolhouse is. So here's just a photo of me in 1989 in front of the A-10 in the UK, and then here's a picture of me as I'm getting ready to fly into Iraq from the base we were flying out of in Turkey. 38 combat missions, 168 combat hours. I got to do some other interesting things while I was in the Air Force. One of the things I got to do was I was what was called an advance agent for Air Force One. So I would go out in front of the arrival of the president, and we would do all the preparation for the arrival of the president. And for those of you who don't know, it's not a political job. There were 60 of us in the Air Force. We didn't fly the plane. We did all the logistics on the ground. And I had no idea how much work had to get done on the ground before the president arrived. It was a 40-page checklist that we had to run. Super detailed. Here's a picture. I did it in 1999 and 2000. So my first trip, JFK in New York City. And my job was to stand next to the guy in the blue jumpsuit who was then working for TWA Airlines. You might remember that airline. They were going to service the plane when the president left. And the plane pulled up, stopped. The president came down the stairs, hung a right, walked right over to us. And I'm like, oh, crap, what do I do? Do I shake? Do I salute? And then 2 weeks later, that picture showed up at our house. I'm like, oh, they know where I live too. So one of the interesting things, so we paid all the bills. So if there was any bill, like fuel for the airplane, some airports have landing fees, we paid all the bills. And they give us a government credit card, which is kind of scary. So when you get a credit card, there's a peel-off strip that has typically a number that you call to activate it. And so I call this 800 number to activate it, and I get this message that says, your card is now active. Your available line of credit is $30 million. Don't lose that. So I like to ask people this question. Most people in here, I would imagine, just by looking at the audience, you remember where you were on 9/11. It's one of those days that everybody will remember. You'll remember where you were in COVID. I tell my younger team members that. It's something when you have kids, you can always reference back to. Some of you may remember where you were when the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded. I remember that day because I was walking across college campus, and I'll always remember that day. But I always like to ask people where they were on 9/11 because I was stationed at Pentagon. So on the other side of the building from where the plane hit. But that was just a day that, kind of a dot, on my resume, my life, just remembering that piece of it. Here's an interesting story that most people don't know from the Pentagon. So I'll ask this question. My team is like 50-50 in getting this answer right, but I think you guys will get it. How many sides does the Pentagon have on it? Good, thank you. So my team's like 7. That's an octagon. So 5 sides. So when the Pentagon was built back in 1947, they built it a side at a time. They called them wedges. And they would build a wedge, and that wedge had HVAC, it had electrical, it had plumbing, and once it was finished, it was fully occupied, and they went on and built the next wedge. And they did that over time until the whole thing was connected. And then it hadn't been renovated in 50 years. And so in 2000, they started this massive renovation of the Pentagon. They were going to renovate it wedge by wedge by wedge. And so what they would do, and each wedge took 2 years. So they emptied out a wedge, completely gutted it. Everybody that was assigned in that wedge went someplace else, either in the building or they rented office space downtown. And one of the things that they did during the renovation was they hardened the outside entrance. If you remember something called the federal building in Oklahoma City, they had a truck bomb that went off, the Timothy McVeigh bomb. Do you remember Koch Towers in Saudi Arabia? A big truck pulls up with a bunch of ammonium nitrate, explodes, and 300 service members were killed. So they're like, we don't want that to happen here. So we're going to harden the outside. So here's a picture of where the plane hit, and I don't have a pointer, but you can see the 5 sides. So there's 5 rings that the Pentagon has. The outside ring is called the E ring. There's a small gap, and then the D ring, the C ring, the B ring, the A ring, and then there's a courtyard in the middle. And so on 9/11, the side of the Pentagon that the plane hit was the side that had just been renovated. Okay, it was almost completely empty because they hadn't started putting people back into it. So 189 people were killed, and that was tragic, but it could have been so much worse. And if you look at the picture, the plane, because it hit the side that was hardened, only got to the C ring. It didn't get any further because it lost so much energy as it hit that hardened exterior. Had it hit any other side of the building, it would have gone all the way to the courtyard. So just kind of a good news story on a tragic day that I like to share. Just a couple other things from my background. I got to run the flight screening program at the Air Force Academy. So if you were a cadet and you wanted to be a pilot in the Air Force, you had to go through this screening program that we ran. So here's a picture of the organization I was in charge of. That's Pikes Peak in the background. That was pretty awesome. And then my last assignment in the Air Force, I ran the legislative liaison office on Capitol Hill for the Air Force on the House of Representatives side. So it's a photo of me with this was the chairman of the House Armed Services Committee. This was back in 2010. And this was an interesting job because you got to travel with members of Congress in both parties to locations, that they needed to go to do Congress stuff. So I remember Mr. Skelton coming down to our office one day and he said, Colonel, I need to go to Jerusalem to meet with Benjamin Netanyahu, and we got to talk about Iran's nuclear program. Can you set that up for us? And 2 weeks later, we were in Jerusalem, and I was the guy taking notes in the office with him and Benjamin Netanyahu. I thought it was pretty cool. And Netanyahu's been like out of office, in office, out of office. So that was pretty cool just to get a sight of things that you don't see on TV. From that perspective. So pretty cool career, exciting career. I was in 23 years. My family when I retired, so this is a little dated. Our son Caleb lives in Denver, Colorado. Our daughter Abby lives in Columbus, Ohio, and Tracy and I obviously live here. She grew up here in Midland City, and we met up in Troy. So retired as a colonel, 23 years. And when I retired, I started thinking, well, what do I want to do with the second half of my life? I'm still pretty young, and I knew that there were 3 things that were important to me. One was I wanted to lead an organization. Like that was important. I wanted to lead an organization. Second was I wanted to mentor and develop people. Like that was important to me. And third was I wanted to get involved with and get back to a community. We've been married 34 years, we've moved 18 times. And we've been here for 7 years, so you can just subtract that off and go, wow, a lot of moves. In the military, it's just so hard to get involved in a community because you're not there very long. So that was important. And I wasn't looking to get in the restaurant business, honestly, but I came across Chick-fil-A's corporate purpose statement, and I just absolutely fell in love with it. Their purpose statement is to glorify God by being a faithful steward of all that's entrusted to you and to have a positive influence on everybody you come in contact with. And when I heard that, I go, that's what I want to do. It's exactly what I want to do. So I just had to convince Chick-fil-A of that. And so went through, and it's a long process. For me, it was 14 months, 8 interviews, and we got offered the opportunity to open the Chick-fil-A in Troy, the alma mater that Tracy and I met in, back in January of 2013. So we moved from the DC area to Troy, Alabama in August of 2012, took our daughter Abby, who was going to be 16, going into her junior year, pulled her away from I see the grimaces, pulled her away from all her friends, and moved to small town USA. So, that in itself was it was a tough transition. So after we in Troy about 3 years and a few months, the store on the Circle opened up. Jim Bradburn, who a lot of you know, did great, brought Chick-fil-A to Dothan, decided to retire. And so we had the opportunity to compete and get selected for the store on the Circle. So just love being with Chick-fil-A. It's a great company, and its future is super bright. So I tell people my old office, when I was in the Air Force, looked like that, right? And then my new office, just kind of me, a little jiggling at the time, nothing, glad we don't have to wear ties in. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to take, the experiences that I've had in the Air Force and with Chick-fil-A, and I want to combine them, and I want to just share 4 leadership lessons that I've learned that maybe, help somebody out here. So I'm just bear with me for that. I'm going to continue just telling them in stories. So the first one is I go back to this story I was sharing with you at the beginning, wedge, shooters, guns. So when I left the story, we had just gone into Iraq. Okay. Our mission, we were told that there was a line of armored vehicles and troops that were moving on a ridge line towards a Kurdish village, and we had to find it. We had to determine if there was any hostile intent there. And so as we cross the border, as I turn my master arm switch on, my wingman's out in what's called wedge formation. We descend down, I'm down at 200 feet, and I'm just plowing towards this ridge line, going about 350 miles an hour, which isn't fast compared to 820, but it's fast enough. And I'm looking for this target, this line of vehicles, and I can't find it. And I'm starting to feel the pressure build in the cockpit, because my job as the leader is to make sure I get my formation to the target area, execute the mission that we're given, and bring us home safely. That's my job. That's what's expected of me. And I'm not doing it right now because I can't find that target. And then I go from this pressure feeling to then these emotions of I'm a terrible leader. This is all going off in my head, 200 feet above the ground, in Iraq, in this short period of time. I'm not doing my job. I'm not a good leader. Any of you ever felt like you're a failure as a leader? You're struggling as a leader. You're not doing what you need to do. I was there. And all of a sudden, in my headset, I hear this radio call. It says, tank. That was my call sign. Tank, check 30 degrees to the right, 3 miles. Line of vehicles moving left to right on the top of a ridge line. Your 6 is clear. And I turn the plane quick, 30 degrees to the right. I look, and it was like the Red Sea had parted. And I see this line of vehicles moving towards this village. We're able to identify the target, determine if there was a threat, and did our mission and came back home safely, which is what we needed to do. And so really, my first lesson is simply this. You got to have a wingman, okay? Everybody needs a wingman. In the military, you never go into a hostile environment by yourself. You always have a wingman. Always have a wingman. Your enemy, in my world in the military, is going to try to kill you. They want to shoot you down. They're going to attack you where you are most vulnerable, where you can't see. And so you put a wingman in a formation that they can see your blind spots. So if I'm looking out, and this is just a picture of my little stick drawing of 2 A-10s, one of the formations we fly is called line of rest, where you're 4,000 to 6,000 feet apart, 1,000 above, 1,000 below, and you might be plus or minus 10 degrees. And you put them out there for a reason, because you're most vulnerable in those red places. I can't see what's going on behind me. I can't. My enemy can't. And so I want my wingman in a spot where he can see my area of vulnerability, and he can look back there and he can give me radio calls. He can provide me the mutual support that I need. And so both on a professional level and on a personal level, we need wingmen and wingwomen, in our lives in those arenas. Okay. So that's the first lesson that I just can't foot stop enough. You need to have a wingman in your life. The second lesson is simply this: details really do matter. Details really do matter. So in my time with Air Force One, there's one number that I will never forget. And it's not the $30 million on the credit card, though that's probably a strong second. There's one number I won't forget, and that's this. It's 15 feet, 8 inches. 15 feet, 8 inches. Does anybody want to take a, so if I landed an hour before the president landed, if there was some short notice funeral that the president had to go to, and you got put on that mission and they got you there an hour before, like if you did just one thing, it was this. Okay. And it's not 15 feet, 9 inches. And it's not 15 feet, 7 inches. It's 15 feet, 8 inches. Anyone want to take a guess?
Height from the stairs to the ground.
Yes. I got one more of these. There you go. My last one.
That's cheating, Art.
Hey, it's the height of the stairs. The last thing you want is the president of the United States to step out of the door of the plane and trip. Right? 15 feet, and I got to tell you, that's just the sense of the stairs. That was part of what we had to do. And I remember vividly a trip in Turkey where it was the first time the U.S. president had ever landed in Ankara, Turkey. And he landed at 11 o'clock at night. And we're out there the day before, and there's two of us. And we called them a lead and a wingman. We actually use that terminology for advance agents. And we had these, these little, ruler. All right, you're at the bottom of the stairs. All right, what do you got? I got 15.8. Okay, then I'd walk down. He'd walk up. What do you got? 15.8. I tell you, that plane pulls up, and those stairs pull up, and that door opens, and I don't care how many times you've measured it, your heart is pounding. Because you're like, man, like this is on me if it's wrong. And so I just can't emphasize enough details. I'm not saying you got to know every number, but you got to be detailed. Leaders have got to be detailed. Details really do matter. The third lesson is simply this: you got to lead at the right altitude. You got to lead at the right altitude. What do I mean by that? So here's the picture. Panama City Beach, sitting right on the beach. It's a beautiful day. In fact, a lot of us probably wish we were there right now. Okay, great visibility. You think you can see forever. In this picture, if you're sitting on the beach and you're looking out over the water, you can only see 2.9 nautical miles. That's it. The Earth's curved. So the Russians could have their entire navy 5 miles off the coast. And if you're sitting on that, in this spot right here, you couldn't see it. Okay? But what's interesting is, if you go up to 1,000 feet, all right, you can see 39 miles. If you go to 10,000 feet, you can see 127 miles. And if you go to 30,000 feet, you can see 211 miles. It's
Curvature changes.
Yes, exactly. The curvature of the Earth. So the higher you are, the more you can see. And as a leader, that's so critical to make sure that you're out in front of things. So just a few benefits. And I've learned this the hard way. There are times as a leader where you've got to be down near sea level, grinding it out. But a lot of times, I put it in my terms in my role. Like if I'm scooping waffle fries every single day, or I'm directing traffic every single day, who's doing my job? Those are things that might have to get done in moments for short periods of time, but I need to make sure I get back up to the right altitude and I lead from that right space. Some benefits of just being at the right altitude. One, you've got way better endurance. You wouldn't take off on a Delta flight from Atlanta to LA and cruise at 5,000 feet. You couldn't make it. You'd burn too much fuel. That's why one of the reasons they're up so much higher. You've got a better range, and I think the most important thing is you've got way more reaction time. If something happens at 30,000 feet in your airplane, you have a lot of time to react to that and to make decisions. If you're 100 feet off the ground and something happens, you have almost zero reaction time. So it's just important. And if you do make a decision as a leader that's not a good one, being at the right altitude, you have plenty of time to recover from it. If you lose an engine at 30,000 feet, or 2 engines at 30,000 feet, you got a lot of time. If you lose an engine at 100 feet right after takeoff, man, you have to do a lot of things right quickly to get back and stay safe. So that's my third lesson, just making sure you leave at the right altitude. And then just the last lesson I would share is simply this: the importance of holding the high ground. And, you know, there's a story. One man made one decision 160 years ago, and a lot of people believe that decision is why we're all here today. Now, this man was a school teacher, okay? But on this day in 1863, this gentleman was told to stand 2/3 of the way up the hill and not leave it. So you got to go up this hill 2/3 of the way and you can't leave. Now, he wasn't a school teacher on that day. He was a colonel in the Union Army. His name was Joshua Chamberlain. He wasn't a colonel because he was a great military tactician. He was a colonel because he was the first guy in his hometown back in Maine to volunteer. It's like, you need help? I'll sign up. Great, you're the colonel. Next two guys walk in. Hey, we're in. You're the majors. You know, and it kind of just stair-step down a little bit. And so he had 1,000 men in his unit from Maine that had worked their way south. And that morning, he anchored a line of 80,000 men from his position, which was the highest spot, all the way down to a small town called Gettysburg. You guys maybe have heard of that battle. Okay? And because he held the highest spot, he knew that everyone knew, like, hey, you're the most vulnerable. So if we lose this high ground, the chances are we're going to lose this battle. So you gotta maintain it. And so during the day, Chamberlain and his men built this rock wall that's about 110 yards long, waist high. It's still there today if you went to tour Gettysburg. And about 2 in the afternoon, the Confederate Army started charging up that hill and attacked Chamberlain and his men. And they pushed him back. They attacked a second time, and they pushed him back. Attacked the third time. Each time, they got a little closer to that wall. They pushed him back. On the fourth attack, Chamberlain got hit, bam, right in the belly, knocked him to the ground. When he realized he wasn't injured, he got back up, kept fighting. The fifth attack, they got to that rock wall, but somehow they pushed him back. The sixth attack, they broke through the rock wall, and there was gun butts and knives and fists and smoke and confusion, and somehow, some way, Chamberlain and his men pushed them back. And as the Confederates retreated down, to regroup, Chamberlain's trusty sergeant, Sergeant Tozer, came up to him and he said, we're out of ammunition. To which Chamberlain said, get it off the dead and wounded. Tozer said, we did that last time. And then Chamberlain's younger brother, who was in that unit fighting, said, we can't stay here. We got to leave. Chamberlain said, no, we got to hold the high ground. We have to hold the high ground. And about that time, a scout that was on this tree looking down at height, he could see, sees the Confederates regrouping and starting to charge back up that hill. And they kind of looked at Chamberlain like, what do you want us to do? And he said 2 words. He said, fix bayonets. And so every man pulled out a bayonet, which is a little sword, a little knife, and pulled it out of the top of their musket and popped it in. And up and down the line, you hear this steel popping into these rifles. And then Chamberlain says, execute a great right wheel, lead from the left. And this young lieutenant, who was fairly new in the unit, looked at the crusty sergeant and said, what does that mean? And Sergeant Tozer said, he wants us to charge. He wants us, with no ammunition, to charge at them while they're shooting at us coming up the hill. And before anybody could do anything, Chamberlain stood up on that rock wall and pulled out his sword and he yelled, charge, charge, charge. And those men leapt over that wall into a history that maybe you hadn't heard. I'd never heard that story, when I heard it the first time. So when Chamberlain left Maine, he had 1,000 men. When he started that morning building that wall, he was down to 300. When he gave the charge order, he was down to 80. And the most incredible thing happened. When the Confederates saw those men pouring over the wall, they thought to themselves, they've been reinforced. Were outnumbered, they threw down their weapons, and they ran. Within 5 minutes, Chamberlain had his sword on the shoulder of a Confederate captain, and he said, sir, you are my prisoner. And that captain handed him a fully loaded Colt revolver. About 5 minutes later, Chamberlain walked by one of his privates, and that private was guarding about 40 or 50 Confederate soldiers, and the private called him over and he goes, "Sir, I don't have any ammunition." And Chamberlain says, "Don't tell them." One man made one decision. He held the high ground. Historians say that if Chamberlain would have lost his position, the Confederates would have won the Battle of Gettysburg. And had they won the Battle of Gettysburg, they probably would have taken D.C. And historians go on to say that if they had taken D.C., modern day United States of America would look different. It wouldn't be a North and a South. It would probably look more like modern day Europe, a lot of different annexed countries. And so think about this. Back in the 1940s, when Hitler was ravaging through Europe, and Emperor Hirohito was systematically taking out islands in the Pacific, there wouldn't have been a United States of America to stand in the gap. One man did the right thing. He held the high ground. So my challenge to you would be, in what you do as a leader, as a husband, as a wife, a business owner, part of a team, whatever that looks like, be people that hold the high ground. Okay? That decision to do that can make a difference. It sure did for Chamberlain. So hold the high ground. So my 4 lessons are right up here. The importance of having a wingman. The fact that details really do matter. You got to lead at the right altitude. You got to hold the high ground. Those are 4 things that I would leave you with. And I would say this, you can only lead somebody as far as you're willing to lead yourself. So it's so important. You're great to go, these are great things, but you got to lead yourself first as a leader. There have been periods in my life and seasons in my life where I haven't led myself well. And I think I feel it with the organizations I was in charge of. And there have been other times when I've led myself really well. And I think the organizations see it as well. So it's important for us as leaders to lead ourselves well. And the last thing I just throw out, and I'll finish, always remember, it's so important to be kind to everybody, and that every life has a story. What better way to end than with a Chick-fil-A video? So I'm going to show you about a 2-minute Chick-fil-A video, and then we'll be back. See if it take time to read the stories around you. You can make a difference bigger than you could ever imagine. So thank you so much for the time that I got to chat. I'm happy to answer any questions, stay after if people have to go, whatever works for you guys. but I sure appreciate it. My pleasure.
Very impressive story, but I got one question. How much do they pay you to direct traffic outside and also inside? It's a pretty awesome operation you got.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I wish the DMV would come out and maybe revoke some driving privileges. I'll be kind and leave it there. It gets a little crazy. Yes, sir.
I was reading recently about a prototype of a few stores you're doing in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Totally different concept than what you have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're talking about a raise, like the drive-through is gonna go underneath the building. It's gonna be completely digital. It'll just, well, if you look at it, it looks like you're going under a carport. Chick-fil-A is constantly innovating and trying to figure out how do we solve our current problems, because the remodeling work that we had done in 2020 is almost obsolete now, and so, just because the volumes continue to grow. And man, when that store was built in 1999, I don't think anyone envisioned it would be like it is today. And that's just not for us in Dothan. That's a lot of places across the United States, that Chick-fil-A is. So yeah, we'd be excited to see how that tests and how it comes out. Yes, sir.
I live on Meadowbrook, and I was watching construction going on every day. Can you explain how you're gonna get into your place with that wall and everything they've got over there?
Oh man. So at the end of the day, I'll see if I can explain this in a good way. At the end of the day, so there are 4 lanes across the circle. When it's all done, there's going to be 12 over by us. You're going to have a 3-lane service road. You're going to have a 6-lane circle. You're going to have a 3-lane service road on the north side of the circle. So we're on the south side of the circle, north side of the circle. So as you're coming down, somewhere just past where Fridays was, you'll turn into the service roads. There'll be 2 lanes coming one way, 1 lane coming the other way, and you'll stay on that service road, and that'll be how you access us, Sam's, any of the businesses back there. You'll actually have access back to Staples and that area as well, back in there. If you're coming the other direction, and so if you're coming this way and you want to go to the north side, there'll be a light you'll have to turn on that will give you access somewhere near Watley into that service area. And then the reverse will be true coming back. It'll be, if you're coming down Montgomery Highway, hit the circle, make a right, you're going to have to get in the far left lane somewhere around Richie B's to hit the light to cross over into the onto the service roads. And if you miss it, you're going to have to go down to Choctaw and do a U-turn. Look, everyone here will figure it out. It's the travelers. And so we're working with the city to try to work on signage. I think that's going to be the big challenge, especially for travelers that are coming through, because we do get a lot of through traffic. So we'll see. But it's probably got a year left. I think they're going to open. So the light at Sam's, that's going to go away. All those cross-throughs will be closed. I mean, you'll have to get on or off the service road in 2 spots. That'll be it. So we'll see how that goes.
Just an incidental question.
Sure.
Have you gotten in Russia yet? McDonald's is there big. Some of the other hamburger places are there, but I didn't see Chick-fil-A.
We're not in Russia. No, we're in Canada. Canada. We're going to go to Canada soon. It's a small little island in the South Pacific. Yeah, Canada, and we're in Puerto Rico, and they're using those, what they're learning from that, and in Hawaii. You can almost say Hawaii is kind of international. A lot of supply chain challenges. I think what Chick-fil-A wants to do at the end of the day is they want to honor who they are as a company. You go to any Chick-fil-A across the United States, and you're probably going to have a very, very similar experience, right? Fast, fresh food, clean store, friendly team, accurate service. Like, they want to make sure that stays the same. And so they're not trying to go so fast as to get to number 1. That's not their goal. They just want to stay fast. And so they're going to do that smartly. Yes, sir.
I love your ice cream, but you've done away with the big cup.
Yeah, they did. I hear you. We have shared that they got rid of large milkshakes. It's like a milkshake. By the way, shameless plug, there's a new milkshake and a new sandwich that are coming out next Monday. The honey pepper pimento chicken sandwich. So if you like, gonna have jalapenos, honey, and pimento cheese. And it's tested last year, a lot of positive tests in the South, especially. And then there's a caramel crunch, new milkshake that's coming out next Monday as well. So, but yeah, I agree. You have to get a lot of small cups to get the ice cream you want. And our ice cream's great. So our ice cream's great.
Why no more than that large milkshake? I had cancer and I lived off those milkshakes.
I've asked the same question. I would just say it's one of those at the end of the day where, as a franchisee, you just salute smartly, say yes, sir, and you move on to the next one because it's just not good. I mean, corporate they set the menu, they were looking at what they're looking at, and it was the decision they wanted to make with what they thought was, they think, simplification and some other things. So, I'm not gonna put my flag on that hill. I'll take a different one maybe if I. But
Keeping the salads was a good thing, though.
yes, yeah, the side salad was a good.
Our pleasure.
Yes,
Instead of my pleasure, it's our
pleasure. Yeah. You guys know where my pleasure came from?
Thank you for being with us. Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure came from the Ritz-Carlton, Truett County. He heard it at the Ritz, loved it, and he thought that sounded so upscale. Came back, said, we're all going to say my pleasure. And it took over 5 years to get the entire organization saying that on a fairly consistent basis. So if you're a leader and you're frustrated because you're not seeing traction, like, it's not going to happen overnight. I mean, even if you're at the highest level. So. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks for being with us today. Great story. I can personally speak to the addictiveness of those waffle fries. My very first job was Chick-fil-A. I worked at Chick-fil-A for 3 years when I was 15. And when I started working, I couldn't stand the waffle fries. And I was a cook. And you give me waffle fries and some of that barbecue sauce, and I would sit back there all day. It's good stuff. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to the guests for being with us today. Reminder, there will be a board meeting immediately following this meeting. So I'll see the board members up there. With that, please stand to recite the four-way test. Of the things we think, say, and do.
Is it true? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Have a great week.